investors. I'm Ashley Berry, and today's conversation is focused on critical minerals that underpin modern manufacturing, clean energy, and national supply chains, particularly fluorspar and vanadium. These materials are really essential to everything from industrial processes and infrastructure to energy storage and electrification, yet much of the U.S. supply really remains heavily import dependent. So joining us today is John Lee, CEO and Executive Chairman of CleanTech Vanadium Mining Corp., which trades on the TSX Venture under the symbol CTV and on the OTCQB in the United States as CTVFF. John, great to meet you and great to have you with us today.
Yeah, thanks for the invite for the first time on your show.
Yes, we're so excited for this conversation. And, for our investors listening and watching who may be unfamiliar with fluorspar, what would you say is the importance in today's economy specifically? What are the primary end uses, and what's the current size and outlook both globally and in the U.S., which, of course, as I mentioned, heavily relies on imports due to limited supply?
Well, actually, 100% of U.S. consumption of fluorspar rely on import from China and from Mexico. I've been around the mining industry for over 20 years, actually coming on 25 years. And fluorspar is one of the most exciting investment opportunity that I've come across in my 25 years of career outside of silver, which is also my specialty along with critical minerals. Now, fluorspar, as you mentioned in the introduction, is actually all about energy production and energy storage. Every uranium going into the nuclear fuel requires 6 fluorspar for the enrichment process. So in essence, the uranium coming out of the ground needs to react with fluorspar to be gasified, and from there the centrifuge process starts, and that's what separates the U-235, which is the fissile uranium, from the U-238. So while a lot of the uranium bugs, people are focusing on uranium for energy production, but they have somewhat ignored fluorspar, which is a critical element to be married for uranium for the enrichment process. At the same time, in terms of energy storage, people talk a lot about lithium batteries and the anode, the graphite and cathode, and transition metals in cobalt, in nickel, in manganese. But people don't talk about the electrolyte, which is where the sodium and the lithium is. That's the electrolyte. That's the transition liquid, the medium of which the ions swim back and forth. And that is hexaphosphate, fluorophosphate, which again is fluoride, is fluorine. So every lithium and sodium ion requires 6 fluorine atoms for it to be moved around the cathode and anode. So in the end, overall, I call fluorspar as kind of a Robin to the Batman. You have the Batman that's doing the show, but the Robins is playing that supporting role, much like rare earth that a lot of buzzes come about. People know the magnets, people know the rockets, but people don't talk the rare earth much about it until the supply hits the cliff and due to geopolitics or supply disruptions, and people talk about it, and then we had a big run up in October in critical minerals, including fluorspar. It's gone up more than 5 times in 2 months, but now it's settled back down a bit, which creates a buying opportunity.
Fantastic. And I don't think people understand just how essential it is. So I think your description is incredibly helpful. Now, let's turn to your Illinois, Kentucky, here in the United States, Fluorspar District land package. Can you talk about the district's history and past production, geology, potential upside here?
Yeah, actually, kind of like mining is kind of like real estate, location, location, and location. This Illinois, Kentucky fluorspar district accounted for 95% of the historical fluorspar production in the U.S. Especially the Renaissance is back in World War II when fluorspar was used as a fluxing agent. It still is as a fluxing agent for steel and for aluminum production. It creates that layer to protect the aluminum and steel from oxidation. So historically, 95% of the fluorspar is coming from the district. It measures about 600 square miles, of which CleanTech's holding, of which we carefully amassed in the last 6 months, has taken up about 20% of the entire area and equivalent to the size of Manhattan. So already in a very short amount of time, CleanTech has become a major dominant player in this district, which is the elephant of the fluorspar exploration and production in the US. It's kind of akin to Battle Mountain for gold in Nevada, for gold for in the US. But if you look at fluorspar, then it's this Kentucky, Illinois fluorspar district.
Yeah, and then you talked about like location. You talked about the 100% dependency outside of the United States. So it sounds like you are in the perfect prime location and what exactly the United States needs. So looking ahead, what would you say are the key next steps to really advance the fluorspar assets and move them toward the next stage?
Well, actually, the mandate, there's no window dressing. As I mentioned, we are working around the clock to put the mines into production as soon as possible. The US, the Department of Logistics Agency, which is the procurement arm of the US government, is tendering up to $250 million of fluorspar to build that strategic stockpile, which it depleted and sold back in the late 90s because people thought that commodity is a barbaric relic. And the Chinese flooded the fluorspar market since the 1970s. That's why US has no domestic production anymore. And we've been approached by some of the largest nuclear operators, some of the largest chemical producers that produce refrigerant, Teflon, and all of that require fluorspar, and they need fluorspar since yesterday. So we're very closely working with the government agencies. In fact, I'll have a call in 15 minutes to figure out a way we can expedite and accelerate the permitting process and the mine construction to supply this fluorspar back into the market. Because actually, I just want to sort of preface emphasize that there is a lot of talk about artificial intelligence. These data centers of which they're building right now, kind of training the babies, right? The know-hows. They're building tens of gigawatts of data centers. And each data center is in the gigawatt range, and there's not enough power in the United States. You heard about Jeff Bezos, or they're buying powers in Michigan. And there is a huge land grab of power. The bottleneck is not chips, it's not NVIDIA, it's not capital. There's tons of billions available from the Saudis, from the Japanese, from the US government. But the bottleneck is power. And there's not enough power right now to go around. And the fastest way to get power onto the grid is not nuclear or coal or it's actually solar. That is the largest energy increase means of energy production increase because it's fastest. But the solar power need to be married with energy storage to provide that base load so that the power continues when the sun doesn't shine. And that's where the sodium and lithium batteries comes in handy. Fluorspar price has gone up 50% in the last 3 years alone. 50%. It's gone up 500% since the bull market started in 2000 because China has turned into an importer from being an exporter of fluorspar because they are building these batteries to complement the solar energy production for their own AI initiative. And they don't have enough fluorspar, and the situation is actually more acute than rare earth because China has over 60 years of rare earth supply. But they have less than 10 years left. So there's a global land grab for fluorspar, and that's why I was a mind-boggling situation that the company's market cap went up 10 times in the last 3 months. It's settling back to around the 20-cent range, which creates a good buying opportunity. But the mandate is very clear that we're going to rewrite the chapter of fluorspar renaissance in the United States and supply this much needed critical minerals for energy production and energy storage in the US. And right now, there is no fluorspar production in the US, only 2 fluorspar companies with exposure to fluorspar resources in the US.
Yes, absolutely. And, I'm really glad that you mentioned the data centers, the solar power. I mean, I'm in the state of Virginia near Washington, D.C., and they are going up everywhere. And it's just like, it's very clear that there is a huge need for it. So let's just talk briefly about vanadium and what investors should understand about its resource potential here.
Right. CleanTech started out as a vanadium company, as the name suggests. So the company spent over $20 million on this Nevada Battle Mountain vanadium district called Gibellini. So it is it's kind of like the fluorspar asset of which CleanTech has got the size of Manhattan, over 10 million tons of historical resource in the ground. Similarly, the Gibellini Vanadium Project is extremely well endowed. It's what I call a generational asset. We've taken $20 million to get the project to currently fully permitted from the U.S. federal government. So it's one of the very few, I think it's one of the only greenfield exploration vanadium project received the record of decision from the Bureau of Land Management, which can take anywhere from 10 to 20 years. We achieved that in 5 years. So the project was what I call a shovel ready and is pending higher vanadium prices. Vanadium is used for steel rebar for construction and for energy storage. So 80% of vanadium is actually used for construction, strengthening of steel. And so vanadium is going through a bit of a doldrum because the slack in the global construction activities. And that's why the project is on standby. But vanadium is the other 20% of vanadium is used for batteries. And these batteries can go on for 30 years because the anode and cathode and the electrolyte is all vanadium. That's why there's no degradation in quality and in capacity. And so it is a specialized batteries, but right now, Fluorspar is really taking the center stage, given its massive drive in energy production, in nuclear, in solar, and energy storage in batteries.
Yeah, and massive increase in the stock as well as the price, as you said. So, for those that are listening and watching, what would you say makes CTV a compelling investment opportunity right now?
We're in the second inning. In comparison, U.S. has always been late to the game in the mining theme, in sort of the mining dimensions and interest. Compared to our Fluorspar peers in Australia and in Mongolia, that are selling around $30 a ton of fluorspar in the ground. We're selling like $2 a ton in the ground. We have 10 million tons of historical resource selling at a market cap of 20 million. And our peers in Australia are selling a similar resource selling at 300 million. So part of my job, in addition to working with our technical team, our permitting team, in getting the mine to production as soon as possible, is to bring awareness and the story out to the market. And we are in a head-on collision. Just like the rare earth, it's not going to take too long. The inflection point is already passed, meaning that there's not enough fluorspar to go around, and the prices are already high enough to justify production. And now it's a matter of getting the story out. And I think there are some good audience. Everybody who heard about the story, almost everybody's become a shareholder. So now there's a bit of accumulation phase. Some of the earlier investing in vanadium has sold out, and some of the lesser educated, lesser informed CleanTech shareholders don't know much about Fluorspar, which we're trying to get to them. But it's really a very exciting opportunity. The company is well financed, over $1 million in the bank, extremely supportive shareholders, and also in discussion with a number of strategic investors. So I don't think financing will be an issue, and we're now looking to raise money in the shorter horizon. So like I said, the stock went from 3 cents to 50 cents and now selling at around 15 cents, creates a flooring and a sort of a basement opportunity.
Well, John, you are a terrific storyteller, I must say, and I want to thank you so much for walking us through both the Fluorspar and vanadium assets, mainly Fluorspar, the importance of it, the district history we talked about, and your development strategy. And for investors, it is clear that CleanTech Vanadium is really positioned right now at the intersection of critical minerals demand, U.S. supply security, energy transition opportunities, as John mentioned. Again, we appreciate your insights, and we certainly look forward to watching your progress as these projects advance. Thanks again, John.
Yeah, well, check us out, CleanTech CTV's website, and also on our YouTube. We created quite a number of introductory video shorts and about what Fluorspar is used for. I think your audience will be quite helpful.
Excellent. Again, trading on as CTV, as I said, on the TSX Venture and CTVFF, over the counter in the United States.